Darren stepped off the shuttle and onto the polished floor of the Zerani royal palace. He had imagined this moment countless times, preparing in every possible way to impress the alien leaders. The Zerani were known across the galaxy as a proud and disciplined people. Their cities shimmered with metals that glowed under the twin suns, and their architecture seemed to float above the ground, held by forces Darren could barely understand. Now standing in the central hall, he felt his chest tighten with nervousness. The hall itself was enormous. Tall crystal columns stretched to the ceiling, reflecting the light in rainbow colors. The air smelled faintly of sweet minerals and ozone, a scent Darren would remember for the rest of his life. The walls were decorated with holographic tapestries, showing scenes of ancient Zerani history. Warriors in flowing armor battled monstrous creatures. Inventors revealed strange machines, and scholars studied the stars. Every image radiated pride, honor, and discipline. Darren was not the only human present. There were diplomats, scientists, and translators with him, all dressed in formal suits designed to show respect to the Zerani. Despite their careful preparation, he could feel the weight of centuries of cultural expectations pressing down on him. He had practiced his bow countless times in front of the mirror, adjusting the angle to perfection. At the far end of the hall, a pair of golden doors slid open. A hush fell over the room. The Zerani royal family appeared, moving with a grace and confidence that made Darren feel suddenly clumsy in comparison. The tallest among them was Princess Alira. Her skin shimmered with a soft silver tone, and her eyes reflected the light in a way that made them seem almost like liquid glass. She walked with elegance, each step measured and calm. Her expression was serious, yet her gaze held a quiet curiosity. Darren's heart raced. He had read about the customs, the strict rules of speech and etiquette, and yet now, standing before her, he felt words failing him. His mouth felt dry. He bowed deeply, trying to remember the correct human gesture that would show both respect and humility. Alira's eyes met his, and for a moment time seemed to slow. "Greetings, Princess Alira," Darren said, his voice just above a whisper. "I am Darren from Earth." The princess inclined her head slightly. "We are pleased to receive your people. Speak with care, human. The Zerani value truth, and they value restraint." Darren nodded, trying to calm the storm of thoughts in his head. He had trained for this, rehearsed for hours, yet the formalities felt like a tight cage around his mind. As he stepped forward to introduce himself further, he noticed the design of her attire. It was elegant, almost regal, and designed to reflect her status as the heir to the Zerani throne. In his panic, his brain misfired, and a thought that had never occurred in rehearsals escaped his mouth. Your chest is very big," he blurted out. The words hung in the air. The hall went silent. Eyes widened on both the human and alien delegates. Darren froze, his face burning with shame. He wanted to disappear into the polished floor. Every instinct screamed at him that he had just committed a grave offense. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then, unexpectedly, Princess Alira laughed. Not a soft laugh, but a clear, melodic sound that echoed across the hall. Darren's jaw dropped. The court around her shifted uncomfortably, unsure how to react. The Council of Elders stared, their expressions unreadable. "You speak without fear, human?" Alira said, her voice calm, yet filled with amusement. "Few dare speak so directly. Few dare speak without ceremony." Darren stumbled over his words. "I meant no disrespect, Princess. I was trying to compliment. I did not know how to express it properly." Alira's laughter softened into a warm smile. "Perhaps your words are clumsy, but your honesty is refreshing. You speak what you think, without hiding behind ceremonies or traditions. This is rare among outsiders." A murmur passed through the hall. Some of the Zerani looked shocked, while others seemed intrigued. Darren blinked, unable to believe what he was hearing. Instead of anger or punishment, the princess had smiled at him. She had accepted his mistake in a way that no one in his life had ever accepted a blunder. The human diplomats whispered among themselves. "Did she just forgive him?" One asked. "Yes," another replied. "And more than that, she seems curious." Alira gestured for Darren to step closer. "Come, human. Tell me of your world. If you are to be here, we must understand each other. Words can be forgiven, but knowledge lasts." Darren's legs felt weak, but he moved forward, grateful for the unexpected opportunity. They walked to a quiet corner of the hall, away from the council and the assembled guests. The soft light from the crystal columns bathed them in a gentle glow, making the moment feel almost private despite the size of the palace. Tell me about Earth, Alira said, tilting her head slightly. What do humans value? How do you decide what is important? Darren took a deep breath. For the first time, he felt like he was not speaking to royalty, but to someone who genuinely wanted to listen. We value honesty, courage, and kindness, he said slowly. We try to learn from each other and from our mistakes. We fight wars, but we also try to create peace. We are not perfect, but we try to be better every day. Alira's eyes softened. Your people speak of ideals that many fail to live by. Yet I see sincerity in your words. You speak as one who has felt the weight of your choices. Darren nodded. Yes, I have made mistakes just like everyone else. And I will make more. But I hope we can learn from each other. For the first time, Alira's posture relaxed. She smiled, a rare expression for a princess trained to always appear controlled and unshakable. Perhaps your mistakes are what make you interesting. Perhaps that is why you survive in ways others do not. The council elders watched silently, uncertain whether this moment was a breach of protocol or a sign of a new understanding. Darren, oblivious to their thoughts, continued speaking. He described Earth's oceans, mountains, and skies. He spoke of people working together to build cities and explore the stars. He spoke of laughter, music, and the joy found in simple acts. Alira listened intently, asking questions that revealed her own fascination with a world so different from hers. As the conversation continued, Darren realized that the accidental comment had opened a door that allowed him to connect with someone who had the power to change the course of interplanetary relations. He was still embarrassed, but he understood that sometimes mistakes led to unexpected opportunities. Hours passed, though it felt like only minutes. The sun shifted in the twin sky, casting new patterns of light across the crystal floor. When the conversation ended, Alira looked at Darren with a mixture of amusement and respect. You are bold, human, she said. Few outsiders could face a court without fear, and even fewer could make me laugh with a slip of words. I will remember this day. Darren bowed deeply. Thank you, princess. I am honored by your kindness and your humor. As he stepped back, he noticed that the human delegation was staring at him with astonishment. They had expected disaster, not laughter. Some were shaking their heads while others smiled quietly. Recognizing that Darren had done what no diplomat could, he had made a genuine connection. That night, as Darren lay in his quarters aboard the palace, he thought about the day's events. He had been terrified, clumsy, and utterly unprepared, yet somehow it had worked. He realized that diplomacy was not only about perfect speech or careful gestures. It was about courage, honesty, and the willingness to show humanity even in the most alien of situations. Princess Alira, meanwhile, returned to her private chambers with a thoughtful expression. She had seen many humans before, but none had surprised her like this one. His words had been careless, yes, but there had been something real in them, a glimpse of a world beyond the courtly masks and political games. She wondered what other surprises humans might bring, and for the first time in her life, she felt a spark of genuine curiosity that had nothing to do with duty or protocol. The palace was quiet now, but a new connection had been made, one that could change the way humans and Zirani viewed each other, and it had begun with a single accidental statement. The next morning, Darren awoke to the soft hum of the palace. The walls glimmered faintly in the sunlight, which filtered through the crystal windows. He stretched, trying to shake off the tension from the previous day. Despite his nervousness, he could not stop thinking about Princess Alira's reaction. Most humans would have feared punishment, but she had laughed. She had been curious. Darren dressed quickly in his formal uniform, adjusting his tie carefully. Today he was scheduled for a series of briefings with the council, but he knew in his heart that his meeting with the princess would happen again. Something in the way she had looked at him suggested that she wanted more than a single conversation. As he walked through the halls, he noticed the staff moving with precise grace. Robots and alien attendants carried trays of food, polished the floors, and prepared the audience chambers for the day's events. Everything in the palace seemed designed to show perfection and order, yet the beauty of it made Darren feel small and ordinary. He was led to a small reception room, where Princess Alira was already waiting. She sat on a silver chair, her posture straight yet relaxed. Her eyes sparkled with a mixture of amusement and curiosity. "Good morning, human," she said as Darren entered. "I hope you slept well. Are you ready for today?" Darren bowed. Yes, Princess. I'm ready. Thank you for granting me this meeting again. Alira smiled. We have much to discuss. Yesterday your words were unexpected, yet I find myself wishing to understand your people better. Sit and tell me more of your world. Darren took a seat, careful not to appear too formal, but also careful not to appear disrespectful. Where should I begin? He asked a little nervously. Alira leaned forward slightly, resting her hands on her lap. Begin with what makes your people proud, what drives them, and what they fear. Darren thought for a moment. Humans are proud of their achievements. We build cities, explore the stars, create art, and discover science. We value courage, curiosity, and the ability to overcome challenges. At the same time, we fear failure, injustice, and the loss of those we love. But these fears often drive us to do better, to protect what matters, and to grow stronger. Alira listened intently. Her silver eyes seemed to reflect his words as if she were trying to understand not just the meaning, but the feeling behind them. Your people seem complicated, yet I sense a simplicity too. You are guided by emotion, but also by reason. This is unlike the Zirani, who often hide emotion behind control and protocol. Darren nodded. That is true. We are emotional, sometimes to our disadvantage, but I think emotion is what makes us human. It allows us to connect, to understand each other, and to act with compassion. Alira's lips curved into a small, thoughtful smile. Compassion. Something many Zirani speak of, but few truly practice. Your words are strange, human, yet they carry weight. You are not afraid to speak what you feel. This is unusual. They sat in silence for a moment, and Darren realized he was beginning to see Alira not just as a princess, but as a person. She was intelligent, aware, and capable of seeing beyond appearances. The accidental comment from yesterday had given him a way into her world, and he was learning more about hers than he could have imagined. I have a question, Alira said suddenly. Why did you speak so openly yesterday? Most humans would have been cautious, careful not to offend, yet you spoke your mind. Darren swallowed, thinking carefully. I suppose I was nervous. I wanted to make a good impression, but my words came out wrong. And yet, I wanted to be honest. I wanted you to know that I am human, with flaws and mistakes, not perfect like your court might expect. Alira tilted her head, considering him. Flaws and mistakes. You embrace them? Most Zirani hide them, fear them, or punish them. Your openness is intriguing. It shows bravery, though perhaps not the kind expected in diplomatic meetings. Darren laughed softly, embarrassed. I would call it luck more than bravery, and maybe a bit of foolishness. Alira's laughter was soft, musical, and it made Darren's chest relax. He realized she enjoyed his honesty, even the awkward moments. Perhaps your foolishness is what makes you interesting, she said. It is rare to meet one who does not hide behind protocol and fear. I wish to know more of such humans. Over the next hours, their conversation continued. Darren spoke of human society, the challenges of leadership, and the ways people tried to live in peace despite constant threats. He spoke of space exploration, the fragile alliances humans had formed with other races, and the hope that one day, people could understand one another better. Alira asked questions, each one thoughtful and precise. She wanted to understand the human mind, its reasoning and its emotional responses. She asked why humans valued laughter, why art mattered, and why risk was so often a part of human life. Darren answered as best he could, sometimes pausing to find words that could bridge the gap between their cultures. You speak of emotions often, Alira said at one point, yet humans are said to be unpredictable. Does this unpredictability not harm your people? Darren shook his head. Sometimes yes, but unpredictability also allows us to adapt, to surprise enemies, and to find new solutions. It can be dangerous, but it can also be powerful. Alira nodded thoughtfully. I see. Your flaws are your strength. This is an idea that our people may not fully accept, but it is compelling. As the conversation progressed, Darren noticed subtle changes in Alira's behavior. She leaned forward when intrigued, frowned when puzzled, and even smiled when something amused her. These small signs of humanity reminded him that despite her regal status, she was still a person with curiosity and feelings. They walked through the palace gardens next. The Zirani gardens were unlike any Darren had seen before. Giant plants with translucent leaves swayed in patterns controlled by subtle air currents. Water flowed in clear streams, suspended in shapes by magnetic fields. Birds with radiant feathers flew in formations, guided by invisible forces. The beauty was almost overwhelming, yet it was quiet and serene, allowing conversation to continue. Alira paused near a pond that reflected the twin suns. "Do humans have places like this?" she asked. "Yes," Darren said. "We have forests, rivers, oceans. Some are wild, untamed, and dangerous. Others are calm and peaceful. We try to protect them, though not always successfully." Alira's gaze softened. "You speak with care. Most who come here are impressed by the palace, by its beauty, but you notice what it offers quietly. Perhaps humans are different because you see the world with both caution and wonder." They spoke for hours, and the bond between them grew. Darren realized that Alira was not just observing him as a human or a guest. She was learning about his thoughts, values, and intentions, and she was allowing him to understand hers. Finally, the afternoon sun began to lower, casting long shadows across the gardens. Alira turned to him, her expression serious. "I must ask you something, human. If you continue to speak as you do, revealing both honesty and curiosity, how will you protect yourself? High Court may not forgive such openness as easily as I do." Darren met her gaze steadily. "I will be cautious, Princess. But I will not hide who I am, I cannot. And I hope that in time others will understand the value of honesty, just as you have." Alira nodded. "Perhaps. I see potential in you, human. Not just for friendship, but for understanding between our worlds. We may learn much from each other." As the meeting ended, Darren felt a sense of accomplishment and relief. He had survived the first day, but more importantly, he had begun a connection that went beyond diplomacy. He had touched something genuine in Princess Alira, and in doing so, he had learned something about himself as well. That night, Darren wrote in his journal. He described the palace, the gardens, and the conversation with Alira. But more than the details, he wrote of the feeling of connection, the sense that despite mistakes, honesty could open doors no careful speech ever could. Alira, in her private chambers, reflected as well. She had met many humans, but none had made her laugh, challenge her thoughts, or intrigue her with such directness. For the first time, she wondered if her duty as a princess could include learning from outsiders, embracing ideas she had never considered, and seeing value in what was unconventional. The palace remained quiet under the twin moons that night. Outside, stars shone brightly, and Darren imagined the vastness of the universe connecting worlds that had barely begun to understand one another. The first step had been taken, born not of careful planning but of a simple, accidental statement. And yet, that step had changed everything. The following days in the Zirani Palace were filled with meetings, tours, and introductions. Darren moved carefully among the council, diplomats, and palace staff, always mindful of the customs, yet still aware of Princess Alira's watchful eyes. He had learned that a simple gesture could carry weight, a slight misstep could anger the court, and that every word mattered more than he could have imagined. Despite the formalities, Alira sought moments to speak with him alone. She found these conversations refreshing, a break from the rigid expectations that defined her life. Each time they met, she asked more about Earth, about humans, and about the choices that led Darren to this palace. And each time he found himself speaking more openly, sharing not just knowledge but thoughts and feelings that few outsiders would dare reveal. "You are brave, human," Alira said one morning, walking with him through a balcony overlooking the central city. The Zirani towers stretched high into the sky, their surfaces reflecting sunlight in shifting patterns. But bravery is not always rewarded here. Many admire courage, yet few accept it when it is displayed without caution. Darren nodded. "I have felt that, Princess. On Earth, bravery is often misunderstood. People may fear it or envy it, but it is what allows change to happen. Without courage, we would remain trapped in what is safe, even if it is wrong." Alira smiled faintly. "Perhaps that is why I am drawn to you. You do not speak with fear of failure or judgment. You are honest, even when honesty is dangerous. Most Zirani would never do the same." As they spoke, Darren noticed a shadow cross her face. "Princess, is something troubling you?" he asked gently. Alira hesitated, then let out a soft sigh. "You see, human, I am expected to be admired for beauty, respected for lineage, and obeyed for authority. Yet few listen to what I think or what I wish to achieve. I am measured by appearances, not by ideas. It is a cage invisible yet heavy." Darren's heart tightened. He had known that royalty often lived restricted lives, but he had not imagined such a weight. "I cannot imagine feeling trapped by expectations like that, but Perhaps if you allow yourself, you can show others the strength behind your words, not just your image. Alira turned her gaze toward him. It is not easy. The council is powerful. They see questioning as weakness. Even my family. They cannot always understand that I wish to be more than a symbol of tradition. Darren considered this carefully. Maybe they fear change, Princess. But change is necessary for growth, for survival. You have the chance to influence more than your court. You can show them a new way, a better way. Alira's silver eyes softened. Your words give me hope. I have rarely felt someone could see beyond the surface. Most view me as untouchable, perfect untouchable, yet you see that I am human, in the sense of thought and feeling. Perhaps it is dangerous to be seen this way, but it feels liberating. Darren smiled. Sometimes danger is the price of freedom. You can control the image others see, but you can also decide what you wish to show. Perhaps courage is not only in battle, but in speaking truth when no one expects it. Alira considered this, her gaze moving to the city below. Perhaps you are right. I have always known the rules. Yet perhaps it is time to consider what I wish, not only what is expected. Over the next few days, Alira and Darren continued to meet whenever possible. They spoke of politics, of culture, and of the challenges that each species faced. Darren shared stories of human innovation and mistakes, showing how failure could lead to wisdom. Alira responded with stories of her people, of battles fought and treaties made, of scientists and explorers who had shaped the Zirani world. In their conversations, a subtle bond developed. Alira began to confide in Darren not only her frustrations but also her fears. She admitted that despite her training, she sometimes doubted her ability to lead, worried that she would fail those who depended on her. Darren listened carefully, offering insights without judgment, his perspective shaped by human experiences of resilience and recovery. You are patient, human, Alira said one afternoon as they observed a ceremony in the palace courtyard. Most would see my doubts as weakness and speak only to correct them. Yet you listen and understand. That is rare. Darren shook his head. I only speak as I think. Understanding is the first step to respect. You do not need to prove anything to me, Princess. You only need to be yourself. Alira studied him, her expression unreadable. Then she smiled. Perhaps that is why your accidental words yesterday amused me rather than angered me. You did not hide, you did not try to manipulate. You spoke and you were honest. That is a quality I value yet seldom find. The council, however, was not as forgiving. Whispers spread through the palace corridors. Some elders questioned the human's presence, calling his openness a potential threat to protocol. They feared that his influence over the princess might encourage her to challenge tradition, to question the council's authority, and to disrupt the careful balance that had governed Zirani society for centuries. Darren felt the tension, though Alira tried to shield him from it. Do not worry, human, she said one evening. Some fear change, but we must not let fear dictate our actions. You are here to learn and to teach, just as I am here to listen. We will navigate the challenges together. Darren nodded, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. He realized that their meetings were not just conversations. They were exercises in trust, learning, and courage. And he understood that Alira carried a burden that few could imagine, a life of expectation, scrutiny, and the invisible weight of duty. One evening, as they walked through the palace library, Alira paused before a large window overlooking the twin moons. Human, do you think it is possible to change a people's mind one person at a time? Darren thought carefully. Yes, change begins with individuals. If you can inspire thought, courage, and understanding in one person, it can ripple outward. The council may resist, but people are capable of growth, and sometimes the courage of one person can lead many to see differently. Alira considered this in silence. Finally, she spoke softly. Then perhaps I must find the courage to speak not only for myself, but for those who cannot. And perhaps I must learn from outsiders like you, human, who are willing to see beyond appearances and expectations. Darren felt a surge of respect for her. You have the strength, Princess. Strength is not always loud or obvious. Sometimes it is quiet, steady, and patient. You are showing it right now in the way you think and act. Alira's gaze softened. Thank you, human. Few have ever spoken to me with such honesty and encouragement. You remind me that being true to oneself is not a weakness, but a form of bravery. In the following days, Darren observed the pressures Alira faced. The council insisted on strict adherence to rules. Advisors pressured her to follow tradition, and even her family watched her closely. Yet she continued to meet with him, asking questions, exploring ideas, and challenging assumptions. Their conversations also began to touch on the broader relationship between humans and Zirani. Darren shared insights into human diplomacy, negotiation, and cooperation, emphasizing the value of honesty and integrity. Alira considered these ideas carefully, realizing that the human perspective offered solutions and approaches that her court might never conceive. One afternoon, while walking through the palace gardens, Alira confided in him, "I fear that my people will never accept change. They are bound by tradition and fear. Even if I speak, they may not listen. How can I lead if my own people resist me?" Darren placed a reassuring hand on the railing beside her. Leadership is not about being liked by everyone. It is about making the right choices, even when they are difficult. You cannot control others, but you can guide them with wisdom, courage, and example. Change is slow but possible. Alira nodded, her silver eyes reflecting determination. "Perhaps you are right. I must find a balance between duty and vision. I must learn to lead not only as a princess but as someone who understands and inspires." In these moments, Darren realized that their connection went beyond diplomacy or curiosity. It was built on mutual respect, understanding, and the recognition of shared values. He admired her intelligence, courage, and willingness to question the constraints placed upon her. She admired his honesty, perspective, and the courage to speak even when the consequences were uncertain. As the sun set over the palace, painting the skies in shades of gold and violet, Darren and Alira returned to the main hall. The court continued its routines, oblivious to the quiet, personal bond that was growing between the human and the princess. Yet Darren understood that this bond was important. It had the potential to bridge worlds, to foster understanding, and perhaps to change the course of the human-Zirani relationship. That night, as he wrote in his journal, Darren reflected on what he had learned. Alira carried a heavy burden, one of expectation, tradition, and scrutiny. Yet she was also capable of curiosity, growth, and courage. He realized that understanding another being, especially one so different, required patience, empathy, and honesty. And he knew that their conversations were only the beginning of what might become a remarkable alliance. For Princess Alira, the days with Darren had been illuminating. She had seen a human not as a guest or subject, but as an individual with perspective, courage, and insight. His presence reminded her that her own potential was not limited by tradition alone. The next week in the Zirani palace began quietly, but the calm was deceptive. Darren had grown used to the routines and strict order of the royal court, yet even he could sense the subtle tension in the air. Whispers traveled through the corridors, and the council members exchanged sharp glances as they moved between chambers. Something was brewing, and the humans had been warned to remain vigilant. Darren was in the library, preparing notes for a meeting with Princess Alira, when a messenger arrived, breathless and anxious. "Princess Alira," the Zirani youth said, bowing low. "An urgent matter requires your attention. Some factions are threatening to disrupt the upcoming diplomatic assembly. They intend to make a public display against the humans." Alira's silver eyes narrowed. "I expected resistance," she said calmly, though her fingers tightened on the railing. "These factions fear change. They fear the humans and what their presence represents. We must act carefully." Darren approached. "Princess, is there anything I can do to help? Perhaps I can assist in securing the assembly or mediating with the factions." Alira shook her head. "This is not your fight alone, human, but your presence may influence outcomes. Stay close and observe. Your honesty and perspective may be the key to navigating this situation without violence." As the hours passed, intelligence reports confirmed the threat. A small faction of Zirani council members opposed to human involvement planned to publicly accuse the humans of espionage and disrespect. They intended to stage the disruption during the next assembly, a gathering meant to solidify human-Zirani cooperation. Darren felt a knot in his stomach. He had thought that his bond with Alira might shield him from trouble, but he realized now that danger was inevitable. "Princess," he said, "I believe we can prevent conflict if we act carefully. Perhaps, by showing transparency and courage, we can win their trust instead of their anger." Alira considered his words. You are brave, human. Very few would speak so openly. Yet you are correct. I will confront the factions, but we must do so strategically. Your honesty may serve as proof that humans come with no hidden agenda. The next day, the assembly began. The grand hall was filled with Zerani officials, diplomats from other planets, and the human delegation. The atmosphere was tense, every attendee aware of the potential for disruption. Darren stood near Alira, feeling the weight of the situation pressing on his shoulders. Suddenly, as the assembly opened, shouts erupted from the gallery. Members of the opposing faction demanded attention, accusing the humans of dishonesty and disrespect. The crowd became restless, murmurs turning into shouts. The Zerani guards moved quickly, but Alira raised her hand, commanding silence with a calm authority that stunned the assembly into obedience. "Enough," she said, her voice carrying across the hall. "I have heard your accusations, but we will not act on fear or anger. We will speak with reason, not rashness. Humans are guests, and they have shown nothing but honesty and courage in their dealings with our people. They have not deceived us nor disrespected our traditions." Some of the council members shifted uneasily, while others frowned. The faction attempted to continue their protests, but Alira's commanding presence and measured words began to sway the assembly. Darren stepped forward, feeling a surge of resolve. "If I may speak," he said, bowing respectfully. "I am a human. I made mistakes in my words, yet I have tried to speak honestly. I am here to learn from your people, to share knowledge, and to build understanding. I do not wish to harm or deceive anyone. My only goal is cooperation and trust." The hall fell silent. Many Zerani had never seen a human speak so openly, without fear, without manipulation. Some whispered among themselves, impressed by Darren's courage. Others still doubted, but it was clear that the bold display of honesty had shifted the tide of perception. Alira nodded at Darren, her eyes reflecting pride and relief. "You have done well, human," she said quietly. "Your words show what I have always believed. Courage and honesty can influence even those bound by fear." The faction tried one last attempt to create chaos, but the Zerani guards moved efficiently, ensuring no harm came to anyone. The council elders watched carefully, recognizing that the humans' presence and Alira's calm leadership had prevented a disaster. After the assembly, Alira and Darren retreated to a quiet courtyard. "You were brave today," she said. "Many would have hidden behind protocol or fear. Yet you spoke truth, and it has changed the hearts of some who doubted us." Darren smiled, though his heart was still racing. "I did what I could. Your leadership made it possible. Without your guidance and calm, my words might have failed to have any effect." Alira looked at him thoughtfully. "Perhaps this is the beginning of something more. Change is never easy, and resistance is always present. But those who act with honesty and courage can shift minds and even hearts. Today you showed both, and I am grateful." The crisis, however, was not over. Intelligence soon revealed that the faction planned further actions to undermine the alliance. Darren and Alira knew they needed a strategy to prevent escalation. They began to meet in secret, reviewing the situation, analyzing motivations, and considering potential outcomes. "We must show them that cooperation benefits everyone," Alira said. "Fear drives their opposition, but if they see strength and honesty, they may reconsider. We cannot control their actions, but we can influence them through example." Darren nodded. "Transparency is key. We should present evidence of our intentions, show the positive outcomes of collaboration, and demonstrate the respect we have for Zerani traditions. If we act openly, we leave little room for deceit or misrepresentation." The following days were a delicate dance of diplomacy. Alira and Darren worked together to reinforce the bond between humans and Zerani, using meetings, public appearances, and shared initiatives to demonstrate cooperation. Slowly, resistance softened. Some council members who had opposed human presence began to acknowledge their sincerity. During one private meeting, Alira confided in Darren, "I have lived under the expectations of tradition my whole life. Today, I saw that courage and truth can influence even those bound by fear. You remind me that leadership is not only about following rules but also about inspiring trust and respect. Darren felt honored. You are a remarkable leader, Princess. You show strength, intelligence, and vision. Your people may not always understand immediately, but they will see the value of your example over time. Despite the progress, tension remained. The faction continued to test boundaries, seeking any opportunity to sow doubt. Darren and Alira knew that vigilance was necessary, yet they also understood that fear could not guide their actions. Courage, honesty, and strategic thinking would be the tools to navigate the situation. One evening, as the twin moons cast silver light over the palace, Alira and Darren walked along the balcony. The city below was quiet, yet the memory of the recent crisis lingered. Human, Alira said softly. Today I realized that true strength is not only in power or command, but in the ability to act with integrity even when others doubt you. You showed me that courage can take many forms. Darren smiled. And you have shown me that leadership is about more than rules. It is about vision, responsibility, and inspiring others to see possibilities beyond fear. Together, we can face challenges that neither of us could alone. Alira nodded. Perhaps this is the beginning of a new era, not only for our people but for the alliance between our worlds. If we continue to act with honesty, courage, and respect, we can overcome resistance and build something lasting. As they returned to the palace, both felt the weight of responsibility, but also a sense of purpose. The crisis had tested them, but it had also strengthened their bond and demonstrated the power of honesty and courage. They understood that challenges would continue, yet they were ready to face them together. That night, Darren recorded the events in his journal, reflecting on the lessons learned. He wrote of courage, trust, and the importance of speaking truth even in the face of danger. He realized that the crisis had been a test, not only of strategy, but of character, and that success required both intelligence and integrity. Alira, in her private chambers, also reflected. She recognized that the human presence was more than a diplomatic necessity. It was a reminder that courage and honesty could influence change, even in a society bound by tradition. For the first time, she felt that the path forward could be guided by understanding and trust rather than fear and suspicion. The palace remained calm under the twin moons, but the lessons of the crisis lingered. Two beings from different worlds had faced danger together, acted with courage, and shown that integrity could overcome fear. Their bond had grown stronger, and with it, the possibility of a lasting alliance between humans and Zirani. And though the faction still watched, waiting for an opportunity, Darren and Alira knew that the true strength of their partnership lay not in weapons or strategy alone, but in honesty, courage, and the willingness to stand together against adversity. The days following the crisis were filled with cautious optimism. Darren walked the palace corridors with a sense of purpose, his mind focused on diplomacy and trust. The Zirani Council, once hesitant and skeptical, had begun to show signs of respect for the human delegation. While resistance remained, many were now willing to listen, influenced by the courage and honesty displayed during the previous assembly. Princess Alira, too, seemed lighter in spirit. The weight of invisible burdens, the constant pressure to conform to tradition, had not disappeared entirely, but the experience of confronting the faction and seeing Darren act with courage had strengthened her resolve. She began to smile more, ask questions more freely, and even take small risks in her leadership decisions. The human's presence had awakened something within her, a willingness to challenge convention and embrace the possibility of change. Darren met Alira in the palace gardens one morning. The gardens were vibrant under the twin suns, plants glimmering with ethereal colors and birds gliding gracefully through the air currents. The serenity of the space made it ideal for conversation away from the scrutiny of the court. "Princess," Darren began, "I wanted to thank you. You trusted me when others doubted, and you allowed honesty and courage to guide your decisions. That trust made all the difference." Alira smiled, her silver eyes reflecting the sunlight. "You remind me that strength is not only about tradition or authority, Courage and truth are powerful in ways that many forget. I trust you, human, not because of protocol, but because I see your heart and your mind. Darren felt a warmth in his chest. He had hoped to earn her respect, but he had never imagined such an open acknowledgement. It has been an honor to work alongside you, Princess. Your leadership inspires loyalty, and your willingness to listen shows wisdom beyond what many expect from royalty. Alira's expression softened. And you have taught me that even the smallest act of honesty can influence many. Your mistakes, your courage, your openness, they remind me that leadership is about more than appearances. It is about integrity and action. Their conversation was interrupted by a messenger. Princess Alira, the Zirani youth said, bowing low. The council requests your presence in the main chamber. They wish to discuss the final terms of the Human-Zirani alliance. Alira nodded. Thank you. Human, accompany me if you will. Your insight may be needed once more. The council chamber was grand, its walls reflecting the light in intricate patterns. The council members sat in a semicircle, their expressions serious but respectful. The remaining members of the opposing faction were present, their demeanor cautious. They had witnessed the events of the previous week and knew that open hostility could no longer dominate the discussion. Alira took her seat at the center, signaling Darren to stand nearby. She addressed the council with calm authority. The humans have demonstrated honesty, courage, and respect for our people. Their actions during the crisis showed not only bravery but integrity. I propose that we formalize our alliance, ensuring cooperation in trade, science, and exploration. There was a pause. Some council members shifted uneasily, but many nodded. Darren stepped forward, his voice steady. Members of the council, humans come with the desire to understand, learn, and work together. We make mistakes, yet we strive to improve. Our intention is peace, cooperation, and mutual growth. We ask for your trust, and we will prove worthy of it. Alira observed quietly as the council deliberated. The faction that had opposed the humans spoke, but their words were measured. They acknowledged the courage shown by both Darren and Alira, and recognized the benefits of cooperation. The tension that had dominated the palace days ago began to dissolve. After hours of discussion, the council voted. The decision was unanimous in favor of the Human-Zirani alliance. The assembly erupted in quiet relief, and Alira allowed herself a satisfied smile. She turned to Darren. We have done it, human. The alliance is secured, and the factions have accepted the outcome. Your presence, honesty, and courage were instrumental. Darren bowed respectfully. It has been a privilege to serve alongside you, Princess. Today proves that understanding, trust, and courage can overcome fear and resistance. The weeks that followed were filled with celebrations, ceremonial exchanges, and preparations for cooperative ventures. Darren continued to work closely with Alira, sharing insights about human culture, science, and diplomacy. Their bond grew stronger, founded on mutual respect, shared experiences, and the understanding that their differences were strengths rather than obstacles. One evening, as they walked through the palace balcony under the twin moons, Alira spoke softly. Human, I have learned much from you. You show that honesty is valuable, courage is essential, and mistakes can lead to growth. But more than that, you have reminded me that trust and friendship can cross worlds even when it seems impossible. Darren looked at her, feeling the depth of their connection. And I have learned that leadership is not just about rules or appearances. It is about vision, integrity, and the courage to act even when others doubt. You have shown me that a person can influence many by being true to themselves. Alira smiled, her silver eyes reflecting the moonlight. Perhaps this is the start of something greater, not only for our people but for the universe. Humans and Zirani can achieve much together, if we continue to act with honesty and courage. Darren nodded. I believe so, Princess, and I believe that our partnership can serve as an example, showing that respect, understanding, and trust can overcome even the deepest divisions. As the palace settled into quiet, the city below shimmered with life. Zirani citizens, once wary of human presence, now moved with curiosity and cautious optimism. Traders, scientists, and diplomats began planning joint projects, inspired by the example set by Alira and Darren. The palace, once a place of tension and strict protocol, now held the promise of collaboration and hope. Alira turned to Darren one last time that evening. Human, you have shown me that courage comes in many forms. Your presence has changed not only the council's view, but my own understanding of what leadership can be. I am grateful for your honesty, bravery, and insight. Darren smiled humbly. And I am grateful for your guidance, Princess. You have shown me the importance of integrity, vision, and patience. Together we have proven that even across worlds, trust and respect can unite us. The following days saw the first joint missions between humans and Zerani. Scientists worked together on research projects, exploring new technologies and shared knowledge. Diplomatic teams traveled between planets, fostering connections and understanding. Trade agreements were signed and cultural exchanges began to flourish. The successes of these initiatives reflected the trust that Darren and Alira had built, and the bond between them became a symbol of the alliance's potential. During a formal celebration, the council recognized Darren and Alira for their efforts. The assembly hall, filled with dignitaries from both worlds, erupted in applause. Alira spoke before the gathered audience. Today we celebrate not only a formal alliance, but the power of courage, honesty, and understanding. Humans and Zerani have learned from each other, and together we will face the challenges of the future with integrity and trust. Darren stepped forward, feeling a sense of fulfillment. We have shown that even differences in culture, appearance, and tradition can be bridges rather than barriers. When we act with honesty, courage, and respect, we open the door to cooperation, peace, and shared growth. The applause grew, echoing through the hall, a testament to what two individuals from different worlds could achieve together. As the celebration continued, Alira leaned toward Darren quietly. Human today proves that courage and honesty can change more than one heart. They can change many. Thank you for standing with me, for speaking truth, and for trusting in what is right. Darren smiled. And thank you, Princess, for showing me that leadership is about more than authority. It is about integrity, vision, and inspiring trust. Our bond has made both our peoples stronger, and I am proud to have been part of it. That night, as the twin moons cast their silver light across the palace, Darren and Alira stood together on the balcony, looking at the city below. Their journey had begun with a clumsy mistake, a slip of words that could have caused disaster. Instead, it had opened a door to understanding, trust, and friendship. They had faced fear, opposition, and uncertainty, and they had emerged stronger. Alira turned to Darren with a playful smile. Human, you surprised me when you spoke without fear. You continue to surprise me now with your courage and wisdom. Perhaps humans are braver than I imagined. Darren laughed softly. And perhaps Zerani leaders are wiser than I expected. I have learned much from you, Princess. Together we have achieved something neither of us could have done alone. As the night deepened, the palace remained calm, yet within its walls, hope, trust, and friendship flourished. The human-Zerani alliance was secured, the factions that once opposed them had softened, and the foundation for a lasting partnership was laid. Darren and Alira, standing side by side, knew that the journey was far from over. Challenges would continue, but they had proven that courage, honesty, and understanding could overcome fear and resistance. And in the bond they shared, both human and princess found not only friendship but the promise of a brighter future for their worlds.